Come in and get cozy with us as we initiate soulful conversations and engage dialogue to reflect your most elevated state. May you ponder these topics with depth and gravity as we dive into our true nature beyond the endless distractions. We are all worth so much more than the naked eye can perceive. Okay, welcome back to episode 4. This is the final episode of this 4-part series. You've been so gracious to me, lending me all of this wisdom.
Child, you don't even know. I know it seems that way, but you're actually being gracious to me.
How so?
I only like to deal with people that have vision.
Aw.
No, I'm serious, because a lot of times, I have some Leo placements, and I'd be like, I could be doing this, that, and the other with so-and-so, blah, blah. So-and-so, blah, blah, ain't paying you no goddamn attention. And then I had made a decision. I will only engage with people who came to me and asked.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I said, what about blah, 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 and they jumped on it.
Mm-hmm.
So down here in Charleston, we have a radio station, Ohm Radio.
Yep.
You know Ohm Radio?
I do know Ohm.
You know
did an interview
Xandrina?
with Ohm. No, I don't.
Okay, I'll introduce you to Xandrina.
But I need to put your episode in the show notes because you did an interview with Ohm.
Did you listen to it?
Not yet, but I am going to.
Good. That's a good move. Don't listen to other interviews before you interview people.
Okay.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
No, definitely. Unless you're doing a documentary, you really want to do research, you can look at old footage, but try not to listen to other people's stuff.
Because it'll influence the conversation.
Maybe. So I was at an event, local, and be real careful how I talk about down here.
Okay.
I was at an event,
Uh-oh.
and I was just walking around by myself, and Xandrina walks up to me. This woman walks up to me. She goes, "Hey," and I go, "Hey," and so you know how you do, because this is one of those things. I said, "You say, well, what do you do? What do you do?" I wish I could get out of that habit. That is like an old corporate habit for me that I really want to release.
I don't like that question either.
I know, but it's like training. Like, what do you do? What do you do? Because it's like, well, if you don't do what they like, what are you going to do? Stop talking to them? But I really asked me out of curiosity because I'm interested in people and what they do. But it does sound, I need to get rid of that. Anyways, Xandrina and I exchanged the what do you do pleasantries. She says, oh, I have a radio show. I said, I want to be on the radio. Just like that. And she said, well, come on. And she says she has never done that before, ever.
Really?
Now, I've done what you call it plenty of times. Like, I want to do that, or that sounds great. But she says she just met me.
Yeah.
And then she had me on her radio show. So for you, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, you got a podcast. Hey, so-and-so, got to be on your podcast.
You didn't ask me.
I know.
I asked you.
I know.
And I was afraid to post the podcast.
Why?
And our special little secret, they don't need to know that. But I was afraid to post about the podcast. I don't know. Maybe I need to look up my Chiron.
You mean your podcast or ours?
This Soul Sister.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What's your Chiron in?
Oh, gosh.
What year were you born?
93.
Oh,
Virgo.
Oh, you're
right?
Virgo or Leo. One of the two. Depends on what month.
Virgo. October.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's routines in order.
Okay. Interesting. But I'm so glad I did.
I think. We're going to look that up.
Okay.
I know that's what Virgo is. I want to make sure you're Virgo.
Well, I've been waiting on the Chironista post for Virgo. Because I know that's when I need to start reading.
That's not going to happen until like 6 months from now. It's going to happen because it's going in order.
Okay.
Anyways,
the point is,
we're back.
This is the last episode, and I'm so glad to have had Miss Cat on for all of this time. And we also talked even before we started recording, and you've lent me more time, and I'm just gaining so much out of this series. I hope that you are too. I hope that you understand the weight, the magnitude of what it means to have someone like Miss the Cat Niambi on this podcast and on this platform.
I mean that. Stop.
So anywho, this last installation is going to be about Divinity. So if you remember back to installment 1, Miss Cat talked about her upbringing in Christianity and how that never really resonated with her, but she had like very spiritual experiences, and she always was attracted to African traditional religion, which her brother and her father were a part of.
My brother.
Just your brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until her 40s that she actually ended up integrating into this African traditional religion. So that's a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But like the first thing that I really want to know is, what is it about African traditional religion that resonated with you that Christianity was void of?
Well, I knew Christianity was a white man religion.
Yikes.
It's that simple. I mean, that's the easy answer. We can go now. If that was the only question, we would be gone, because Christianity, I grew up in that school where it's power to the people, and just because they made me sad and they had corporal punishment, the messaging of white versus black was still embedded in me.
Mm-hmm.
White people are this, black people are that.
Yeah.
White people are this. We go to a black church. Why is there a white Jesus right there? You know, these are the things. Everywhere you see Jesus is white.
Mm-hmm.
I never believed anything that the pastor was saying in the pulpit, because I'm like, you're reading from the book co-opted by white people and created to make this story to keep our own people down.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that from a childhood. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So as you're kind of in this setting, you're in this black Baptist church.
Yes.
And there are loads of black people who you respect, who you grow up with, who are buying into this narrative. Why is it that that's not registering for you?
Because it wasn't true. It wasn't true.
It could just be true for them, but you knew it was never true for you.
I knew it wasn't true for nobody.
Okay.
I knew that they believed in it, and that's an enslavement of the mind. That's an enslavement of the mind. That's one thing I could stand tall about. You know, I may not have trusted my gift, but I never doubted that we were not the first people. We were the first people, so why is Jesus white? Period. Mm-hmm. That was never that's the thing that they wanted to embed in us, and they did their job. So I've always been proud to be black. I would never come back as anything else. I will always want to come back as a black woman.
Interesting.
Absolutely. So this whole concept of, first of all, men shouting at us from a pulpit and telling us what to do was one thing, and then you're promoting white Jesus. So that was easy. I went to this school where the religion came out of that. So I love the music, because ancestrally, that is vibration. That are songs that I know because my mother knew them and my grandmother knew them. And if you put all of us and all the ancestors in a room that were enslaved Africans here in America, we would all know the songs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's what this music is what ties you to your lineage. It ties you to your ancestors. So I love that about the church. Spirit always ties you. But all this other stuff they were talking, boring. I smell fried chicken coming from the vents. When do we get to eat? That was all I cared about.
So then where were you spiritually in your childhood, where you knew that Christianity was a sham?
Yeah.
And it was just a practice that you were doing because of your mother or influences. Yeah. But you're not really in a space where you understand anything about African traditional religion. So what did God mean to you? What did spirituality mean to you?
Oh my God, that's so crazy to ask me that. Because it's really like, what did it mean to me? I have no idea. I imagine, and this is where the influence of white media seeped into me. I was a big fan of television, and there was none but white people on there. So I loved shows like Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie and things with magic, anything like futuristic stuff. To me, that stuff was spiritual. Okay. Like the ability to do beyond what we feel like we have the power to touch and do. I always felt attracted to magic.
Okay.
you know?
So energetically, there was always something there. There was never a time where you felt like there is nothing. No. You always knew.
And I had an agnostic father. And he was
Right.
just like, oh, and he never said he didn't believe in God, but, and I would never call him an atheist, but, you know, I just know he loved Mahalia Jackson. So if you love Mahalia Jackson, then you must know there's a God.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't listen to gospel music if you were an atheist.
Right. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then take us into like this long span of like your spiritual resonance that actually turns into initiation into African traditional religion.
Yeah.
So can you explain like what your specific religion is and how that web works and the initiation process and kind of how you kind of get into identifying in that way?
So what I will say is, let's go back to the whole theme of church. One thing that the African traditional religion and Christianity have in common is the sense of community. When my mom had died, fast forward to 2006. So now 2006, I don't know how old I am. Somebody do the math.
If you're 57 now, that's 18 years ago.
Oh, we went too far. 39? 39. So I'm 39 years old, and I'm not doing anything. I'm no longer with my daughter's father.
Yep.
My brother's taking care of me spiritually. But that's just me and my brother. Okay. And it's like, there's something missing.
There's something missing.
There's something missing. You know, it's spiritual family. It's, you know, I've learned from my brother I do these things, but I go to no drummings. I don't go to people's homes when it's their religious birthday. There's no sense of community for me. You know, my mother is gone. My father's gone. You know, it's like, where are the elders? Where are the elders? Remember we talked about cults and the signs of cult. Where are the elders to tell me what to do? So what was the word I'm using is triggering, but not in a bad way, is that because the school I came from, so glad we have backstories. The school I came from, I knew those women. They were my elders. When my daughters were little and going to like one of the offset schools, my community now would put up a picture of Offset in the chat. I went to one of these offset schools, and the women there were some of the women from the community that I knew as a kid. So now the women that were raising me in a nurturing way were now going to be able to take care of my kids at the daycare.
Okay.
So they're still around me.
Yep.
And one of those elders passed in 2006. From cancer, and I was going, and I loved her dearly. Her name was Mama Wambui, and we always say Ibaye when the person is gone. We say Ibaye.
What does that mean?
It just means letting people know that they're past, they're dead. So when you talk about someone, you want to make sure you're giving them honor by saying Ibaye, just to say they're not here with us, they're here. And so if you're calling them, you're saying Ibaye.
Okay.
So she passed away. And you know what they do here in Charleston when there's a funeral? You know how they got the whole line of family outside waiting to go in? Is that just my family?
I don't think I've seen
So here in Charleston, at least, when someone passed away, the immediate family stands outside the church on line before they let everybody else go in, and then the family goes in.
Last, yes.
Yeah, last.
Yep,
so
yep.
I noticed when I went to Mama Wambui's funeral that everybody was gathered outside. People that I knew, all in white. And here I was.
In black.
No, I wasn't in black.
Oh, okay.
I knew better than that.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm saying is they were all waiting to come in because they were part of her spiritual family. All of the people, everybody. And I was just walking along the line, kissing. But I can't get on the line because I'm not part of the community.
Right.
So I go skulking inside. And then I sit over here with everybody else. And everybody's over there in their whites and they're all sitting down. You know how the funeral home has one side and the other side is rows and rows and rows of people in white.
Yep.
And the whole funeral, I had no one to console me. You know, I was just alone, and everybody was just over there, and they were all consoling one another, and I knew them, and I was just felt like I want to be. It's strange, right? Some people get with communities because they see they having fun, but I was like
Support. You need support.
Support, but they look like they really support each other and our family. They look like they really care, and it's like, oh, that's what I want to be a part of. And so I, decided I wanted to be a part of it. I knew a lot of the elders already. Went through a process of selecting a godparent. I would leave that for a whole nother show if you wanted to, about recommendations. I've talked about it many, many, many times on how to go about selecting a spiritual elder. And then I was on the road. I was on the path. I was part of the community. And I went to the drummings, or we would do ceremonies. And I'm not initiated now. I'm just wearing what you call ilekes, and what they call an eleo. Eleo. And that's someone who's in the tradition but not initiated.
Okay.
So it's like a practitioner who has a godparent, but they're not initiated. What does initiation mean? Initiation for the Yoruba Lukumi tradition is about receiving a spiritual ceremony that involves a metaphysical event.
A spiritual ceremony that involves a metaphysical event.
So every closed system has a ceremony.
Right.
That impacts you somehow metaphysically.
Okay.
Yeah, just like mushrooms. Take you to a place, and people get initiated in different types of earth plant and earth medicine, especially in Africa or South America or here, and then you get initiated by medicine many times. Initiations usually include some kind of medicines or herbs or things of that nature, and a lot of prayers, a lot of prayers. And the community comes together in a ceremonial way, those who have already gone through the process, and you go through a ceremony.
Okay. And when you talk about you being a practitioner and then initiated into the Yoruba Lukumi, was that something that just happened because of proximity to the members that you wanted to be a part of, or did you actively select? Can you kind of choose, oh no, I want to be part of this African traditional religion as opposed to that one?
So for the one that I was already in proximity to for many, many, many years, that was the Yoruba Lukumi tradition.
Okay.
Now, there are pockets all over the world of ilays, I-L-E, ilays, houses that you can become a part of.
Okay.
So I decided to join the house that had been around me since I was 6 years old.
Okay.
Out of Brooklyn. And there's a head of this Elay who is the one who initiates people, and then they get initiated. It becomes like a family tree.
Okay.
But through spirituality versus your blood.
Okay.
There's a lineage.
Got it.
And for my particular Elay house, that lineage goes back to Cuba. Because I did explain that, right?
You did.
Yeah, it goes back to Cuba.
Okay. Interesting. And when it comes to the actual initiation process, I'm guessing that's something that you don't speak about? That's completely private.
Oh, we speak amongst ourselves.
Got it.
But because it's closed. That's what you mean by closed system. It's closed to the world of people who haven't gone through it.
Okay. And is there any kind of guidelines in terms of people who cannot be initiated?
I wouldn't call it guidelines. So you just don't walk up in there and be like, I want to be your Lukumi tradition.
Oh.
It's something that's read out. Is this part of your lineage from a DNA ancestral standpoint? Is one of the questions that are asked when you get a reading.
Okay.
Is this someone who should even be doing this? And many times they tell people no. Not that you can't, just that you probably shouldn't, because maybe that person's other ancestral line wants to lead this person.
Got it.
And like I said, every tradition that's Yoruba Lukumi, that's reputable, African traditional, should have an ancestor veneration piece. Your ancestors have the first word. The first word. Like, is this what Melanie's supposed to be doing? Asking the ancestors that have gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no. They'll tell you.
Okay, so they're consulting your ancestors to see whether or not you even...
Readers can consult your ancestors. And there are readers who can consult Orisha. Who's Orisha? What's Orisha?
Goddesses?
Sure, you can call them that. Deities is a good word.
Okay.
Because everybody's heard of Oshun. Oshun,
Yep.
Oshun, Oshun.
Yeah.
Beyonce, Oshun. Oshun.
Yeah.
There's also male deities, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's Obatala, which is the deity that has my head, or is my crown. That's what you call it, your crown. There's Shango, you know. Mm-hmm. There's all of these deities, and there's so many of them. Don't ask me to, I personally cannot name them all. I can't even name the capital of North Carolina. Is it Raleigh?
That sounds about right.
I'm just saying. I know my basics,
mm-hmm.
and those basics have taken me to levels I would have never imagined. So when you talk about the impetus for healing,
mm-hmm.
because of the way that Orisha has worked in my life, they have guided me on a particular path. Most of the time, you should be doing that spiritual stuff.
Your message.
You understand?
Yes,
when you
yes.
get these shell readings, they
mm-hmm.
tell you that. When you get the shell readings, they tell you a lot of things about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are just like, I don't want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're just like, okay, all right. And for the most part, I listen to a ton of it. There's still a lot that I still have to work on.
So it sounds almost like, because the way that I thought about ATR before
mm-hmm.
you broke it down was like you kind of have this menu of options and you're sort of selecting like, okay,
mm-hmm.
I want to do it this way, and
mm-hmm.
it's choose your own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way that we approach traditional religions
mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways, but from the way that you're explaining it, it seems like something that you're completely guided towards and guided through.
Hopefully.
You mean by hopefully?
So remember you said to me that your intuition, you don't trust it sometimes.
Yeah.
So at some point your intuition is going to help you along this way. It depends on how much you're hearing and how much you're listening, right? Mm-hmm. Some people, it's like this. I can only see this. Some people it gets bigger. Oh! So this is your intuition in evolution. You're trusting it. Slowly. You know, and you still have so much more.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that there's the levels of spiritual development that will eventually answer your question. Many people don't listen to the guidance. Some people think they heard something else. But things like sitting those misas that I sat, the centros, you get information from people you don't even know. They'll tell you right then and there. They'll tell you about your grandma, your granddad, and you'll be like, how did they know? And then you start to believe. And then you say, okay, well, the next thing out their mouth, I should listen to, right? Since they told me everything else.
Yeah.
And they don't know me. And then they tell you something and you be like, oh, no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
That's on you, boo.
Right. Okay, but it is intended to be an intuitive journey.
That's 99%.
Okay.
Now, what helps support that are readings, because like I said, you can get a reading. The Misa situation was a reading. You can get a reading from everyone. Heard the word Babalao before, Babalao in the DMs. And remember, I told you my brother was a Babalao. So these are people who don't necessarily choose to initiate here in America. They go to Nigeria or they go to Cuba and they get initiated to another level. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to do this hand motion. So you understand different traditions have different ways of initiating people.
Okay.
So you have the Akan religion out of Ghana. You have Candomblé out of South America, Brazil. You have Yoruba Lukumi through Cuba, Americas. You have Voodoo from Haiti. You have Sankoma, is that what it's called, from South Africa. You have so many African traditional religions.
Yeah, it's kind of like where do you start? How do you?
Well, if you know, you kind of got it. The one I always point to us, I always say, do you know where your people were from?
Right.
And then for African Americans, Black Americans, that's a really hard question.
It is. From a lot of places.
If I answered that question, I would have been like, I don't know, Ghana, Nigeria. It was a guess. But if you tap in and if you are put into the proximity of people, sometimes, you know, what's that saying about, the student is looking, the teacher will appear. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
And the steps towards that are spiritual development. How do you spiritually develop? You maybe have an altar in your house.
Yes.
That's, you know, with a nice table with the glass and the candles.
Yes.
You may sit in meditation in front of, I don't know, at a river. And messaging can come to you. But it all involves listening.
Right.
Every single time.
So when you get to a place where you know now that you're identifying with this particular ATR and you are initiated, is there like a sacred text, or is there like, because I've heard people chant a language that is not English as part of their religion. So kind of how do you learn these things?
It's an oral tradition.
Oh.
We do write things down. There are things that are written, but there's no, for Yoruba Lukumi, there's no Bible.
Okay.
But there's a zillion scholars out there in the world who have written books, and they have written prayers in books.
Okay.
They write stories in books that are called apatakis, Apatakis, apataki, probably. And they're like stories. Some people might say Aesop's fables or something like that, where there's a story involved to teach you a lesson. Tell your story so that you can understand. If they're saying this is your story, you know, growing up, the apataki of this. And it's always a story about this Orisha and that Orisha. And they met near a river, and then this person tried to trick that person, and then they went there.
Okay.
So you learn your lesson through that. And those are oral stories. Yeah, some people are writing them down now, and they're scholarly texts. But there's nothing like a Bible in Yoruba Lukumi.
Okay. And then when it comes to like communal gatherings, because you started in New York, that's where you were originally.
Brooklyn.
And then you lived in Philadelphia for a time. Now you're here in Charleston.
Yep.
Like, how do you find your people? And do you gather with them on a regular basis? Like, people go to church?
Well, globalization has changed the outline. The globalization, people migratory. So, in those times, I can speak a little bit about before I joined the house. But if you're talking about when the house first started and came from Cuba, super communal, super insular in your borough. Maybe you go to the Bronx for that ceremony, but you find usually your godparent is in the same borough. We call Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens. Maybe they're in the next borough, so you could take a train real quick, subway. So I'm talking about the New York scene. But you got the Miami scene, you got the Atlanta scene, people got cars, but then people are starting to move. So now your godparents are not in the same city anymore, so you got to visit them. So a lot of the communal things are when there's an initiation ceremony, when it's someone's initiation birthday, we get together just like people do for a regular birthday. You get a bite to eat, you come and you see their Orisha displayed, and you come and you give honor to that Orisha. There are drummings. Those are the fun ones. Yes. When there's drummings and you can dance and sing. They're conferences.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Conferences. The Omo Obatala Egg Bay Conference is where they bring people from all over. It's not just the Elay. It's everybody from all over the country comes together for a weekend-long conference. That was in person until 2020, and then we did a virtual one. So just like the things that churches face, people moving, people da-da-da-da, this community faces it as well. These communities face it as well because people move and people globalization.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then, in between these moments of community, whether it be initiation birthday or an actual initiation, what have you, a conference, what does the day-to-day practice look like?
The day-to-day practice, they don't really show this stuff on TV. When you see this on TV, it's always like somebody is just at their altar, and their altar's got all these fucking candles on the wall and shit. And no shade to people that got altars like that, but if you are not a healer who wakes up and takes clients in all day, your day looks like everybody else's day. There's usually a devotion in the morning with your Orisha. Maybe you do some meditation, but you get up and you get ready and you get what you got to get done. That's a regular day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's very much so an independent practice that's not regulated in any way.
Right.
Okay. And then how did you figure out who your Orisha is?
So you don't figure that out.
Oh.
So the purpose of the Orisha is not only to protect you and take care of you, but they're just like your ancestor guides. They are messengers from God. So, it depends on what you think your origin story is. I love the story of I was a piece of light from the sky. And while I was up there with the sun, chilling with my other points of light, I decided when I was up there, along with God, what was I going to be coming down here? Yes, you're going to be initiated into this tradition. Remember, you did it in lifetime 26457. Oh, yeah, we doing that again? Yes, we doing that again. So you're going to come down, but guess what? You're not going to be born into a family that does it already. You're going to have to find your way, like the Hunger Games. Find your way home, baby. Find your way home. Okay, I'm down. Thinking... Yeah, but you're going to lose your mama in your 20s. You're going to lose your daddy. You're going to have these 2 babies with a ridiculous man. And you're going to go through all of these things. You're going to become a spiritualist. And, okay, all right, I'm ready. Whoosh, jump down in the earth. Wake up. Wah, 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 wah.
Day one.
We don't know what she's saying. I'm supposed to be a spiritualist and blah, blah. Okay, let's change her diaper. So you don't remember shit as you get older. Like a child, I think children remember. Everybody remembers. Then here comes the parents with their shit.
Yeah. The layering.
And now it's like, oh no, I'm starting to forget. I'm melting. Yeah, that's how I feel like it happens. It makes me feel good when I think of that as a storyline because it makes me feel like I have the agency and I have the power to come back home. So when you say who picks your Orisha, it was already chosen.
Okay.
It has to, somehow the message has to come to you through the Orishas because you made it to this community, right? You went to that funeral. They put me in the line of sight since I was 3 years old. And then these people get into this religion when I was 6. What they doing over there? Don't worry. You'll be getting involved with them when you're 40 years old.
Okay.
And then all on the way, they always right here, always right here, always right here, always right here. But it was important for me to have that Christian upbringing. I never rebuke that. I always feel like it had to happen. It's what built my bond with my ancestors. It kept me close to spirit because that's what's really important because that's what the journey was about, to be tapped in with them. I got Chiron in Pisces at 29 degrees. She's this is everything else talks about it. Her Scorpio talks about it. Everything talks about her being a spiritualist.
Yeah.
So this is the journey. How you just jump. You can't. I don't think you could just jump into helping other people without going through a lot of the experiences yourself. Like a 57-something-year-old woman like myself, would I get a reading from a 20-year-old? Probably not. You know, a child, yeah. If a child could pull me a good tarot card, but a 20-year-old, maybe not. Because it's the interpretation. Unless they are fully under possession, I will listen. But them trying to interpret what Spirit is telling them for me, I don't know. Because I feel like the vocalization and the giving of information, a lot of it is a translation that's happening through a vessel that hasn't had the experience yet. So how do you explain, unless you're under full possession, how do you, a 20-year-old, explain something that is so existentially deep for me that I need to learn at that moment?
Well, what about this concept of like old souls?
Yes, but there's the translation of that still. And that's semi, in my opinion, possession.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I want to detour a little bit into this possession conversation. Because you mentioned it a couple of times, and I was just going to let it rock.
What can I do?
But, okay, so what exactly is... I'm guessing the meaning of being possessed is to channel a message in a setting in which people are looking for messages to be received.
That is the nice way for it to happen, yes.
And what are the other ways?
The stuff you see on the movies, that the people are possessed by demons and other things, and they start running havoc.
How do you make sure that the right kind of possession happens? Because when you're open...
Well, you shouldn't be open. How about that? We talk about empathic, right? But that doesn't mean you walk down the street saying, come and get me, whatever spirit is out there. No, you want to walk with a certain level of protection. How do you do that? If you are a spongy vessel, if you're a spongy vessel and you have the mindset to do what I'm telling you, then there's one thing. But there are people who are open, so open that certain spirits can take possession of you, and it can look like a myriad of things.
That's terrifying. Okay.
Does it resonate?
I understand what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying. Within your particular practice, is that something that you are encouraged to do alone?
No.
Okay.
In fact, you know, this is a matriarchal elay that I'm in, which means there's a whole lot of women. I would say 95% female.
Okay.
Why do I tell you that? I just feel like women are very sensitive to being possessed, spiritually and physically. We understand that concept very well. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay. We're vessels.
Yes.
We receive.
Literally.
We can have a whole nother podcast on... I don't even want to say the word. I'm going to put it in my phone.
Okay.
We all know. Well, we don't all know. So that's even better why I'm putting it in the phone here. I just want to put it in here so you know what I'm talking about. I will not be discussing this
I
evening.
absolutely was thinking that.
I will not be discussing it this
There
evening.
are some physical ways to be possessed.
Absolutely.
You understand?
Absolutely. Okay. We know what we're talking about.
Yes.
So with that being said, we know that that's possible, right? We've seen people catch the Holy Ghost in church. That's spiritual possession. So have I been possessed by spirit before? Yes. Was I afraid? Yes. Do I walk outside like that? No. Why don't you? Because it's not the appropriate time. And a lot of people think that spirit possession is you don't have any control.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
Okay.
That's part of the spiritual development.
Okay.
Is to develop yourself so that you are not taken under that, without your permission, good or bad. Good or bad.
Okay. Fair. I'm glad that you ended with that because I was getting really spooked.
Were you?
I was.
Like the time I said when I died?
When you died, yes. When you confessed who you really are, an incarnation.
When I died. Oh, we're not talking about that time.
Fair enough. Well, you've given us some really great information about the practice of your African traditional religion and how that system works. I know that's probably not an appropriate word to use for it.
I think that's a good word.
But I wanted to kind of land on this conversation of divinity, of understanding, kind of like bringing point Z to point A, how your practice has helped you sort of do the work.
Ooh, you know what I'm grateful for? Moses, you ever watch the Ten Commandments? And they were like, when did God stop talking to the humans? When Moses came down and saw them people partying.
Oh, was it? Oh gosh, what's the name of it?
The burning bush or whatever the thing was. That's when so-called God stopped talking to man, according to the Bible. And that is how they also started. If you read the Bible up until that point, then colonization doesn't really make that much sense. Because everybody can talk to God. White supremacy can't exist if everybody can talk to God.
Correct.
So something had to happen so that the regular people can't talk to God no more. So what I love about my tradition is I can talk to God. Because I have Orisha in my life and I have Egun, ancestors in my life, who give me messaging not from them. They're giving me messages translated through them from God.
Okay.
The one that knows your source. The one that knows you when you was that light that came out the sun.
Got it.
So when I think about how have I been guided, I've been guided by God. This religion, this tradition allows me to know that there is a divine, and that divine is giving me has a history of giving me the information I needed to move through life. Stumbles and all, tragedy and all, trauma and all.
Okay. I don't think there's anything left to say, Miss Cat. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time to go through all of this information, to talk about your divinity, even though it's closed. Like, I am definitely intrigued.
We could talk about spiritual stuff, the Egun ancestor stuff, if you ever wanted to.
Yeah, I think I am gonna offline ask you some more questions about that, just because, like I said, you're the first person I've ever known to practice an African traditional. Exactly, operative word. But thanks for tuning in for not 1, 2, 3, but 4 installments with the beautiful, lovely spiritualista herself, Miss Cat Niambi. I always put all of your handles and things in the description, but I do. But if you want to give a little overview of what you do, how to connect with you, I think this would be a great time.
The only thing I would tell people is to visit middletonfarms.org, cook with an E, and you'll get everything you need to know about what we're doing, especially if you subscribe to my journal newsletter, which really will give you the down low on everything that I'm doing here in Charleston.
That's
the home of my mama.
James Island, right?
James Island. She's an island girl. That's right.
That's awesome. Okay, I'll give you a hug.
Of course.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate appreciate you.
Love it.
Thanks, guys. I'll catch you next week.
Bye.